I'm live. Oh my gosh. Hi, guys. How are you doing? It's Sonia here. I decided to go live because I need to dump some info. C-Ray says he's ready for the dump, and I am ready to dump. That sounds kind of bad, but it's not going to be bad. I promise you guys. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I'm going to assume that you can hear me. And okay, so I'm just going to get into it. I hope this isn't too crazy that I'm doing an info dump here. I hope that I got all the settings right. This is only my second time going live. Flush the commode. Yes, I know, you guys. I'm going to take an info dump live on the air. Okay, sometimes you just have to let it all out, you know. Okay, hi Harry and hi Nikki. So, all right, you guys, this is so crazy, but I decided to do it this way because, and I might have to take my glasses off for some of this. Hold on, let me open the window. I mean, the curtain a little bit. Well, hope you can see me. Okay, so like I have right here, like 2 huge pages of notes in my shorthand, which is very hard to read, and I'm going to have to scrutinize it like this. But what I have here is, you know, like everyone else, I'm seeing what's going on. Hi, Gally Sally. I'm seeing what's going on, you know, in Ukraine. And side note, I really don't know what YouTube's monetization policies are about this. Like, are we allowed to even talk about it and have it monetized? I hope so. There's not going to be any like graphic stuff. There's not going to be anything controversial here, you know, on that end. Oh, it's so nerve-wracking, that whole side of it. Like, I'm just going to give you some information. So excuse me to YouTube if like this is now a taboo topic, since the guidelines seem to change all the time. Hi, Donald. Hi, everybody. So look, I'm just doing my best here. But so what I decided to do is just to go live, because what I did was I'm trying to find out what's happening over there. I'm watching the news and it's like nothing makes sense. Like, has Vladimir Putin completely lost his mind? Is he breaking all these Geneva Conventions? Like, these are what do you call it? Guys, I can't remember the name now, I guess because I'm nervous, but you know, like when you're in a war and war crimes, right? Is he like committing war crimes? Does he even have a battle plan? This is so crazy. Like, the stuff that I'm finding doesn't make any sense. So what I did was I interviewed a Ukrainian. I just was like, you know, I need to get to the source. I need to talk to someone who has contacts over there, like who has contacts in Russia and who has contacts in Ukraine. This is just a normal person who can just tell me a little bit about what it's like for them over there, from a point of view of like what they're experiencing, you know, at the time physically, but also, hi Jennifer, but also like on a political level, and it's just a whole bunch of things that like nobody's really talking about. I just wanted to know, you know, inquiring minds want to know. So I interviewed this guy because sorry, I have to get comfortable. Just sit on my foot. I'm already in my tank top because I knew I was going to be nervous, but I have my shirt here in case I cool off. He's very politically aware, and you know, he's a very informed person. Also, like I said, has a lot of. So I'm just trying to fix my chair. I know this is the weird thing about live, you know, but anyway, sorry guys. It's my hypermobility. I have to go through this whole thing to sit properly. So he's a very aware person, and also has like connections to people over there, and he's Ukrainian. Now, as it so happens, you guys know that my father was a Polish Jew, but this Ukrainian guy, he's telling me, okay, because my grandmother was Ukrainian, apparently. My father's mother was from Lviv, which is in Ukraine. So this guy was telling me there's no such thing as Ukrainian Jews. He was telling me that originally the whole territory was owned by Poland, and then it just got carved up in the process of wars and you know, communism and all that. But basically, like, we have the same roots. Like, our families, our ancestors were all from the same territory. It's like Poland and Ukraine, Belarus. My father's father They're from Belarus, and then they're from Ukraine. But apparently at the time, like, it was all more or less Poland. So anyway, we have these roots, and so I know this guy, and we were talking about all this stuff. I was trying to understand what was going on. And so this is why I have all these notes here, and I just want to share this with you. Okay? So, and like I said, I'm gonna have to take my glasses off for at least part of this because it's very scribbly, and I need to use my super close-up vision. So first of all, I was looking at this, what's going on, and I was thinking, like, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, when you go into war, you have to have a couple of things. First of all, you have to have a battle plan with specific targets and objectives. You don't just go in guns blazing like it's the Wild West. And you have to have a well-prepared military. So, and with your battle plan, usually, you're targeting military targets, military objectives, and your soldiers are well prepared for their mission. And somehow it seemed like that's not what's happening. So, and the targets are supposed to be military and strategic, and they don't usually include civilians, buildings like schools, hospitals, stores, residences. This would be considered war crimes, right? We already know that. You're not supposed to go into a city and bomb out residential buildings. Sometimes it does happen. Remember with all these conflicts the U.S. had in the Middle East where a lot of civilians died, and they said, well, it's because there are, these enemy combatants hiding in these buildings, and so we have to take out the building, and unfortunately people get killed, civilians get killed. Now that's what they say, right? So that's how it happens. Or like at the end of World War II, they did blitzkrieg and they just raised everything. But normally you don't head into a war and just bomb out civilian centers. This is completely bizarre. So that's one thing I was really wondering, what's going on? Like, Putin didn't get the memo, or how is this possible? So that's something that I got some insight into thanks to my conversation with this Ukrainian man. And so I found, it's baffling to see Russia, a superpower, a military giant, launching attacks on Ukraine in this most bizarre and chaotic way. And it was leaving me wondering whether he even had a battle plan. At the time, I was wondering. Or whether this disorganized conflict was really like some secret plan for something else to happen, So let's see, where should I start with this? So a couple of reasons why I was wondering whether he had a battle plan was, one, you guys may have seen these videos on Facebook and on YouTube and different places where they're showing what are supposed to be Russian soldiers who didn't even know that they were going into battle. That was one of the reasons I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. They're bombing civilian buildings and their soldiers don't even know that they're going into war. Hold on, I just have to turn on the light here. That didn't make any sense at all. So I did find out what the deal is with that, which I guess I could tell you this now. So those are footage from Ukrainian-based media, but where to start with this? See, I talked to you about in the other video about these extremists. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use the N word, because not that N word. No, not that one. The NAZI word. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use this word on YouTube now. Like, I really don't even know. Let's call them right-wing white supremacist extremists or something like that. Okay. So there is this, I talked about how there's this problem in Ukraine. So now Zelensky is Jewish. Okay, screw it. I'm just going to say it. He's not a neo-Nazi. His government are not neo-Nazis. But they have a problem in Ukraine, which is like embedded in their military. And this is something that came out of like years of history and conflict. They've got these people in there. It's a bit like what happened with Afghanistan or some other Middle Eastern countries, where it's not the government doing it, but they have like Al-Qaeda, they have Taliban in there. And it gets to a point where the government doesn't even have control over this. And that's what I think That's what I think is happening at this point. Like Zelensky doesn't even have control over the situation in his own military, or at least part of it. That's what I'm finding out. There's aspects of his military that absolutely will not listen. They don't, sorry, my chair again. They don't listen to ceasefire orders. They do whatever they want. So I couldn't blame Zelensky for that. It's really quite complicated. It's like a whole mess that he has on his hands. But so who are these Russian soldiers that are supposedly getting captured by Ukrainians and then saying, we don't know what we're doing here. We thought we were going in for training. And then even weirder than that, they were reporting that they were calling the mothers of these Russian soldiers to come and pick them up. Come on, okay? In a war, if you capture an enemy soldier, there's procedures to follow. He's now, a prisoner of war. You don't call his mother in another country and say, come and pick up your boy. Like, that's why I was like, what in the world? This doesn't make any sense. Can you imagine that the Ukrainians are going to capture Russian soldiers? How are they going to call their Russian mamas in what, Moscow? And they're going to just bus on down to Ukraine and pick up the kids? That doesn't make any sense. None of that made any sense. So I found out what's going on there. These are not Russian nationals from Russia with the Russian Federation fighting in the Russian military. These are people, these are ethnic Russians from Donetsk and Luhansk, and they're in the Donetsk People's Republic, which is their own little military, or the Luhansk People's Republic, known as the DPR and the LPR. And in one of the videos, they asked them, what do you do? And they're all saying, well, I'm a teacher, I'm a janitor, I work at the school. I mean, the whole video looked totally staged, but let's assume these people really are just people who work in the educational field, find themselves in combat gear. Hi, Angela. And they're fighting some Ukrainian forces, and they don't even know what they're doing there. They're not prepared. They didn't even know where they were going into war. Who are these people? They're not Russians from Russia. They never were. They're not in the Russian military. They're people who are living in those Eastern separatist regions where it's Russian, ethnic Russians. They have their own DPR and LPR forces, which fight alongside the Russians. And apparently, in a sort of scramble, they were recruited into those forces. And then they say, well, we didn't even know what we were doing. Now, I don't know more about it besides that. I don't know whether that's true that they didn't know what they were getting into or why they were recruited so suddenly. But the bottom line is these are Ukrainians. These guys that they're saying these are Russians. Now, I don't know about all of them. There may be some that came from Russia. But most of these videos that I've seen on Facebook, they even discuss in the video, where are you from? And they're saying Donetsk. And they're from inside Ukraine. That's what it is. They're not Russians. They're actually just Ukrainians. So this country is so split up and fragmented, politically and militarily. Even the military itself, even on the Ukrainian side, it's like they've got these like subgroups within it. I feel bad for Zelensky, honestly, because it's like terribly chaotic. He's got a really serious problem on his hands. And I don't understand why the Americans aren't trying to help. Why weren't they trying to help Ukraine solve this problem before Russia got involved? This has been going on for years. And instead, instead, what they were doing was they were going to the National Army Academy in Ukraine. They set up this high-tech classroom, and they're training the military, but they're not really taking into account that there are subgroups within this military who are kind of like, I'm not sure what word to use for it, but I would compare it to something like what happened in some of these Middle Eastern countries, like I said. I mean, I don't want to use the T word, although that might be accurate, I mean, these right-wing extremists, neo-Nazis, they call them nationalists. They're like entrenched within the legitimate military of the government. So when Canada goes over there and does these training sessions, they're helping also to train those people. And when they bring weapons in there and they're putting them in everyone's hands, they're in the hands of those people too. But what do you do with them? Because there's so many of them, and I think they wield a lot of power and influence. And apparently the previous the president who got ousted when there was the coup in 2014, he had to leave the country because it was those peoples like Azov that would come after him and that would have, just murdered him. So this issue about the Russian soldiers, they're not Russian, they're ethnic Russians, they're Ukrainians though. So I thought, does that make sense? Does that make more sense now to you guys too? And so this is why their mothers can come and pick them up because they're not from Russia. And they're not from an enemy army. Like, it's totally crazy. So let's see what else. Oh yeah. So, okay. The question of why are we seeing these like bombed out buildings? And why is Russia, sorry, my writing here is a bit hard for me to see sometimes. Why is, why was Russia like bombing civilian targets? Well, apparently what was happening was that these cities, this is what the Ukrainian guy told me, the cities were being evacuated. I mean, you saw, the footage of oh, thank you, Doolies. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you. I appreciate it. Guys, go check out the Doolies of Michigan Homestead. Check out the channel. So you'd seen the footage of these people hiding out in the subway. Well, they did get evacuated, and what happened was the Russians didn't come like into the city itself. They were around the outside, and those buildings, what you're seeing is after they evacuated, these factions from the military, which it's not just Azov, it's Azov, Centuria, and C-14. They're still in there. And so the Russians are attacking them. I mean, that was part of it. Let me just see what else I have. Sorry, I need to hit off my vape. Wait, maybe I don't want anybody to see me doing this on YouTube. Maybe they'll send me to the meat grinder. But it's like after about 20 minutes, like ADD, I can't think anymore. Okay, so that's the Russians, fighting with these like sub factions of the Ukrainian government. Like I said, I don't think Zelensky even has control over those people. Hi, Justin. Oh, thank you so much, Uncool. Okay, thanks for the encouragement. I just had to, because it's like, look, I got like 4 pages of notes, and I was like, man, if I actually make a video about this, and by the time I put all the graphics in, I'm going to be sitting here for like 48 hours. I need some exercise. I need to like get up out of this chair a little bit. And I figured it's cool. No, I don't smoke weed. Never. No, it's my vape. No, I don't smoke weed, and I'd certainly never do that on YouTube, even though it is legal. But no, that's not what it is. It's just a little tiny bit of nicotine. Don't vape. I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying, like, I need to vape now and then. I quit smoking like 5 years ago. Yay for me. I feel better. My place doesn't smell like smoke. Okay, so I'm going to come back to some of these things, but here's another thing. So, I was wondering, does he actually have a battle plan? And the craziest thing that I found, this is so crazy, it was on Business Insider. Ukraine revealed secret battle plans left behind by Russian troops. Wow. When I saw this, I was like, no, you're kidding. So they claim that as the Russian troops left, they left behind the battle plans. And it looks like a little pirate map, It's like a little sketch with like little things, arrows and stuff. I mean, it looked about as authentic as Mohammed Atta's passport, if you know what I mean. I kind of was wondering. And the weird thing too was, and it had a list of like all the people, and it had a whole bunch of information. And you know what the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense did with it? You guys are not going to believe this. They posted it on Facebook. Can you imagine if, let's say the American government was in a war in Afghanistan or Iraq or Libya or Syria, and they find the battle plans of the enemy. Don't you think they would hang on to them? And this is intelligence that they've just gathered. Don't you think they would just hold on to that and use this for their advantage in the war? Do you think they would post it on Facebook? That was just so crazy. It's that kind of stuff that makes absurd propaganda. It makes me really like lose confidence. Not like I had a lot to begin with at this point, but I mean, I do still read a lot of media hoping that I'm going to figure something out, that they're going to piece together the story somehow. And, of course, it does concern me also, even though I'm not over there. I'm laughing because Meryl Miziul says posted on Facebook, LOL. Yeah, absolutely. Like that was so ridiculous. They posted on Facebook. That's crazy. Yeah, this concerns all of us because, I mean, we're all going to be affected one way or another. Maybe I'll get more into that after the economic effects, the financial effects. That I mean, in a way, like the biggest effect of all this might be to really, annihilate the Western economy. It's like self-inflicted wounds. I mean, it's like we're going to hurt ourselves to hurt you. People were worried about nuclear war, and I figured the only thing that's going to be annihilated is our own economy. Don't worry about nuclear war. Something weird is going on, though. So, yeah, the battle plans, that was just absolutely bizarre. And it just kind of also showed how like the war is being waged on social media as much as on the actual battleground, because they're putting stuff out there just confuse people. That is very strange. I have an incredibly hard time believing it. I have a lot of military people that were in my family. My mother's father fought in World War I, along with a lot of other people. We had people in World War II. My father was a tank commander. I mean, I've heard quite a few things about military and military life and all this stuff. And I mean, there is no way that one party would post the battle plans of their enemy in public. I mean, that's crazy. So then what was that? What was it? If it wasn't really their battle plans, what was it? Now, who put it there? Where did it come from? And that old Putin had plans that he was going to be in and out in 15 days. When afterwards I found that they had planned this war much earlier, even in January, and there's a lot of different stories about when they planned it, when they were going to go in, and how long they thought it would last. But in any case, I think, I call bogus on those battle plans. So let's see here. I got more stuff for you. Okay, the nuclear plant. Yeah, speaking of the nuclear plant. So you guys heard the story was that Russia had bombed a nuclear plant. I mean, I had friends, messaging me on Facebook at 3 a.m, like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. We're going to die. And then Zelensky said, this is the end of the world. So people were very concerned. And the media, I mean, of course, I read, like I said, the journal all the time, and it's very propaganda. And we were hearing everywhere that they had bombed a nuclear reactor or something like that. Well, I'll tell you what really happened, according to my friend who's from Ukraine. So what he says, what happened was that as the Russians came in, they're not, like I said, they're not going inside the cities, but they're creating perimeters around them, securing them. And they're doing this with strategic places, like they bombed out the airports. And by the way, whatever I'm telling you here, don't think that I'm taking the side of the Russians. I would think it's crazy. I mean, this is, what kind of conflict is this? We could be in literally nuclear war, World War III. I'm sure there could have been a way to arrange this with diplomacy. I don't want to see war. So, I'm not like taking the Russian side. I'm just giving you a bit more information. But they had secured actually this nuclear plant. It was taken and secured with the perimeter by the Russians 1 week before this event took place, where they said that it was on fire, that it was bombed, actually, is what they said. And according to my Ukrainian contact, my source, he said that the plant was still operational and the employees were still working there. So it's secured, the Russians are guarding it, and people are still going to work. So what happened was, like I've said to you before, these factions within the Ukrainian military who really don't listen to their own government. I mean, they're rogue. These people are just rogue. They don't listen to ceasefires. They just, it's like Afghanistan all over again or whatever. So they came in there and they started shooting at the Russians, and the Russians returned fire. And what happened was that a building on the campus of this place caught fire. the reactor itself was not at risk, and this was confirmed in the media. It was confirmed in Associated Press. So if you want the actual story about what happened, later was confirmed that there was no actual threat to the nuclear reactor itself. But our media had a huge field day, scaring the crap out of every single one of us, making us think that, we're about to have a nuclear war. And I saw this was the craziest thing. Speaking of that, from the American government, and it was on ready.gov, and they were giving tips for what to do in the event of a nuclear attack, and they were saying how a nuclear attack is dangerous. No, we didn't know. It's dangerous. You can get radiated, and you can get radiation poisoning, and like a bunch of other things. And so here's what you should do. You should go deep underground into a safe place, but while you're there, keep your 6 feet distance and make sure you wear your mask. And they did mention also, like, decontaminate your clothes, take off your radioactive clothes, scrub yourself down, take a seat 6 feet apart, wear your mask, protect yourself from COVID-19. I thought, well, I'm pretty sure that if people were getting nuked, they would be a lot less worried about COVID-19. It was just a bit weird that they would mention that in there, but I guess they felt like they had to mention it, because what if it turns out it's not a nuclear war and you went down in the bunker without your mask and now you've got the COVID? So they had to make sure, because, that's their job. But man, that sounds pretty scary. I mean, pretty crazy to me. Okay, so the issue of the Russians bombing cities, and I was like, what are they doing? Are they just committing war crimes? Sorry, intermission. Vaping intermission. Okay. So the issue of the bombing the cities, and what was going on in Mariupol, which is down at the Azov Sea, like down on the southeast of Ukraine. And this was terrible what happened there, and it's still going on. It's absolutely horrible. By the way, you can sort of like adopt a Russian in a way, or like give them a place to stay if you want, on what's it called? Airbnb. They're doing a thing where they're waving their fears. Like, you can see what's going through my head. I'm like, scary fear. It's like my own subliminal message is just blurting out of my mouth. Okay, so their Airbnb is doing a thing where they're waiving their fees so that you can rent a place in Ukraine with Airbnb, and then they can let refugees stay there, which is cool, actually. I think that's a great idea. Why didn't they do that in France when they had all these refugees from all these Middle Eastern and North African wars? I mean, that's a great idea. That's very grassroots. People could just like rent a place and then put refugees in it. Hi, Olivier. Olivier, leave me a comment under the video so I can make you a moderator for next time. Hi, Linda. Wow. Hi. So yeah, if you want to help with the problem of the refugees, you can rent a Airbnb accommodations, and that brings money in, and it also helps put people up. And I think you could probably rent them in, like Poland and Germany and whatever these surrounding areas. I really love that. It's so, like I said, it's very grassroots, cuts out the NGO middleman, and we should do more of that. So the problem, okay, this is really awful. The problem in the southeast with Mariupol. So there was a ceasefire declared, and the citizens were supposed to be evacuated. But these Azov factions wouldn't let people out. Now, there is a channel on YouTube which is called Radio Liberty, which shows you some footage from over there, which actually I was quite shocked that they put this. I mean, it was extremely graphic. I was like, oh, I can't even, this should be like on Gore Grish or something. It was really horrific. And it wasn't even age restricted or nothing. And I came across it, and what happens is people who are trying to evacuate are being shot. And you can see the footage on Radio Liberty, right here on YouTube. Radio Liberty comes with a little disclaimer that they are from the American government, something like that. In their piece of footage, they said that these shots were coming from Russians, that there were no Ukrainians in the area. So as if the Russians are then shooting people who are trying to leave. However, There are other pieces of footage which are out, which are on Twitter, where they were live streaming, and they're saying that what's happening, it's not the Ukrainian government, it's not the military, they're not the bad guys, and it's not even the Russians. The Russians were trying to observe the ceasefire, and the Russians are wanting to get people out. Listen, why wouldn't they? These are ethnic Russians in there. There's basically their people. They want them to get out. They don't want them to get stuck in the middle of this. So what was happening was, it was actually the Azov battalion once again. And remember, there's these three groups: Azov, Centuria, and C-14 subgroups, undermining all efforts for peace, even from the Ukrainian side. It's total disaster. They're the ones that are not letting people out. And this is where, again, it reminds me of the wars in the Middle East, where they said that these people like kept civilians there as human shields, or something like that. So there was footage on Twitter. There's a couple of accounts. Hold on. One of them, it's called Paul Antonopoulos. He's got some footage on there. And there's another one. People are trying to leave, and these right wing, or whatever you want to call them, these rogue factions, they're absolutely rogue factions. They don't listen to their government. They don't listen to Zelensky. They've got their own ideas, what they want. Those people are blocking Ukrainians from leaving those areas like Mariupol and, the Donbass region. They're the ones who are shooting civilians, and they had, these were filmed live. So you see like the effects of this. Again, I don't want to even go into, I'm so sensitive, like I can't even talk about it, but you guys get the idea. So even though Radio Liberty was saying it's Russians shooting that couple, now I don't know if it was with them or not, okay? But I have my suspicions, because other footage on Twitter is showing that it's not Russians. It's Azov. It's those people. And like I said before, they don't listen. They don't respect the ceasefire. So this is a really serious problem. I mean, if you can impose a ceasefire, you can say, let's get all these civilians out, and everybody wants that, and everybody's pulling together to try to get them out. And these people don't want to leave, don't want to let them leave. And I'll tell you one other thing. I was watching a CNN broadcast about the effort, and there were some Ukrainians. They were like getting their supplies together and whatever, and they said the slogan. They say "Slava Nazi." Now my son is super into Russian for like at least a couple of years. So, and my father spoke fluent Russian, of course. So anyway, I heard Slava, and that means glory. And I was like, what do you mean Slava Nazi? But Natsya, it's like nation, but to the nation. So Slava Nazi, it's like glory to the nation. But they could have said glory to Ukraine or something. But I've seen videos, man, of these Azov guys taking down a gypsy camp. They're walking into the woods, these big guys with all their equipment, and they're just, and these poor gypsies, man. Roma, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say gypsies. Romani. They're just doing their thing, whatever. These guys come in there and they chop down their tents. It was like they were taking down the Occupy Wall Street encampment. But this is these people's homes. They cut it all down, and they were praising each other and laughing. Yeah. Thanks, Dionys. Yeah, I see that. But when I hear Slava Nazi, it kind of freaks me out. I mean, I am Jewish, so it's like it kind of like I'm triggered, But yeah, so you see these guys coming in there, that they're neo-Nazis. They're going after the Roma or Romani people. They're chopping down their encampment, and they're yelling Slava Nazi. And I was like, well, what kind of Nazi are you talking about here? Anyway, so let's see what else we have here. The Russians said civilians can leave Mariupol, but the Azov refuses to let them leave. And there was in the Journal de Québec, there was an article. There was an article of a guy who was over there. I think he's like a sportsman, like an athlete. and he was down in that area, and he wanted to get out. And it was like there was one train that they could take out, and it was a 50-50 chance that you would even survive. And he said it was these like Azov or whatever, they're shooting at the train. Horrible, right? He took that train and he got out, but he was saying that that's what it was. Like they wouldn't let people leave, and it wasn't the Russians. The Russians were around the outside. They weren't all inside the city. They were around on a perimeter. There's a ceasefire. Everybody agrees. Ukrainians, Russians agree, ceasefire. Let the refugees out, let the civilians out, and then the Azov will not let them out. That's what I'm saying. Like, see, Zelensky has a really serious problem on his hands. Can you imagine if the Canadian or American military developed like a huge rogue faction that is just so extreme, that doesn't follow orders, that has like absolutely no respect for even military life or whatever, military law, no respect for life, goes and then it gets to the point where they're so powerful that your own government doesn't even know what to do about them. So this is like the kind of elephant in the room. This has been going on for a very long time. And I don't know why the Americans and Canadians came in there and just went ahead and did training sessions with the military, like I said, including these kind of people, instead of saying, oh, you have a serious problem here. And this whole like white supremacy issue, it's rampant. It's in Russia too. Like, let's not pretend like that doesn't happen. Russians also, there's a lot of like anti-Jewish and, you know, a racist sentiment there. And I mean, when I was in Poland, I knew also that it was there. You see the graffiti, you know that people don't really like Jews. I don't want to tell anybody like, oh, me, let's not bring it up, you know. I mean, they say I don't look Jewish, right? But yeah, it was like, you know, I mean, look, the people that you meet, they're probably okay, but you know that there's some neo-Nazis in Poland too. Apparently this stuff it's like kind of all over the place, but apparently it's got a really big problem with it in Ukraine. Sorry, just 1 second. After that scary thought, I need another hit. Thank you, Theron. Yes, I'm like burrowing, trying to figure out what's really happening because I'm not really satisfied with the story that I'm getting. You know, I mean, the information that I'm getting, and I know that a lot of people want to be like, oh no, like Russia is totally right, and this is fine. You think I would trust them? Listen, Putin. Klaus Schwab named him as a young global leader. There's tons of footage of Putin being there with the World Economic Forum and all that. What on earth would make you think that he's any better than Zelensky or the Americans? I'm not taking sides. The thing that I'm so concerned about, maybe because it's personal to me as somebody who's Jewish, is this issue of the neo-Nazis. And come on, let's admit this is really serious. And it's weird that the dialogue changed from, like, you don't hear about, you know, Muslim extremists anymore. You don't really hear about ISIS and all that. We don't hear about it here in Canada since a long time. Now the discussion has shifted over to right-wing extremists and neo-Nazis. This is what our government was saying in relation to even just a convoy. And we're like, what Nazis? What are you talking about? I mean, yeah, there's probably some people who were involved with that for anti-immigration, but it was like, that's not what the thing was about. Most people who were there, it had nothing to do with that. There were people from all different backgrounds. It was very Canadian. Like, you know, it was very like, hey, we're all together, right? But for some reason, there was this big emphasis on that. All these parliamentary discussions, they kept bringing this up, standing with the swastika, as they said. And there had been a couple of pictures of swastika. Now, what's really weird was there had been some chat messages leaked that apparently came from the RCMP. Wait, was it RCMP or the police? Anyway, including photos of them in the Chateau Laurier, enjoying their time at Chateau Laurier and saying about like what a great time they had, you know, with the protesters, with what they did. And then people kind of start connecting the dots that the picture with the Nazi flag, it looked like it was on the steps of Chateau Laurier. And they're like, oh, that's weird. That's where the police were staying. So people are suspicious. I'm not saying it was them, but like, this is what people are starting to wonder, like, because where did this flag come from, right? Because it didn't make any sense. Was it like, you know, was it a false flag? No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. It looked like, okay, it was on the steps of the Chateau Laurier. So was it the police, or did some people the protesters just happen to go to the Chateau Laurier with their flag? And then that same exact group with the same flags was there was a picture taken a second time. So it's suspicious. So suddenly there's all this attention on right wing, white supremacy and all this. And I'm thinking, it's not for nothing because they know something is brewing. And the right wing extremists and the white supremacists are going to be like the new threat, the T word. Whereas before there was another group, they were concerned with that. Now that's going to be it. Maybe, this is going to be the new thing, like Operation Cyclone all over again, except with white supremacy. That's why I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. We lived through this, with the previous WOT that went on for so many years. And now, it's looking like actually we're heading into like another round of that, except it's going to be a different kind of people, So, okay, what else did I have here? Sorry, I got to take these off for 1 second. Oh yeah, okay. So some of the issues with, he also said that apparently the roads were still open for Kiev where he was, or Kyiv as they say it in Ukrainian, sorry. The roads were open. My Ukrainian friend, yes, he said his family was still able to like use the roads and get out. So they were actually still okay in that city, or they were able to get out. Okay, so Russia apparently, so they're like being really draconian with their media now. They passed a some kind of law that if you're guilty of spreading fake news, you can get years in jail. Actually, an entire television station just up and quit at the end of their broadcast. They all just like walked out. They're like, we're done. So they're holding a very tight control on their media, and also on Facebook, they banned it. My Ukrainian friend says that Russia banned Facebook because he doesn't want them to see the Western propaganda. Like, for example, this supposed battle plan that was discovered, which could be completely fake. It doesn't want to demoralize, I guess, the Russian people or the Russian military by seeing these kind of things. Something like that. Apparently, there's a lot of like actual fake news floating around, and they just don't want their people on Facebook at all. Let me see. Yeah, coming back to this again about the people hiding in the metros, that apparently, yes, the cities were evacuated and the people are out. Well, in the area where my Ukrainian friend has his family. And it's so in Mariupol, they wouldn't let people leave. That was another issue. But in these other cities, the civilians did get evacuated, but the Azov was hiding in the buildings. And so the Russians were shooting with tanks, not bombs. Now, I'm not there. I can't be 100% sure, but this is what my friend told me. I mean, the person that I interviewed, from the news from his family inside there, was that they didn't drop bombs on the buildings, but they shot at them with their tanks. And so in this way, they say they're shooting military objectives because there's Azov people inside those buildings. It's small intermission here. I do want to do a live one day where we can just sort of chit chat and talk and kind of get to know each other, because like a lot of you guys, I recognize your usernames. It'd be nice to like get to know you a little bit more. Okay, so all right, so I got a bit more here. So let's see. The military objectives, some people are saying that Putin is trying to take over all of Ukraine, and then he wants to expand, they're saying, into Belarus and even Finland, and it's going to be like the Soviet Union again. My source tells me that he doesn't believe that. He doesn't think that that's the objective. Apparently, Putin also said that was not the goal. He said he wanted Putin wants to actually take all of Ukraine. That's true, but not to assimilate it. So the goal, according to him, this is, what they're hearing from the other side, the Donbass region will be independent and will be called Nova Russia, or Nova Russia. The center is where there's a lot of Russian speakers, like ethnic Russians. So that would be like, there would be an eastern region that would break off completely from Ukraine. their center region, that would be mostly Russian speakers, that would stay as like Ukraine. And then the West would become Western Ukraine and would join the EU. That's just a theory, I guess, that they're floating, but I thought I'd put it out there. And the Russians are demanding that Zelensky resigns and have a new government chosen by the Ukrainians and to demilitarize. So apparently they're not asking to take over the country and govern the country, but they're asking for Zelensky to resign. Zelensky is apparently like a former comedian, an actor, and you could say, well, then what would make him an expert able to run a country? But apparently, what you just need to do is have good advisors. But my Ukrainian friend tells me that he doesn't have good advisors. I feel kind of bad for him when I see him. I feel like he's kind of like out hanging to dry and like nobody's helping him out. Doesn't have control over a good part of his own military. The Russians are invading, which is, obviously terrible. I mean, this is a nightmare, right? And I guess he thought the Americans and NATO would really have his back, and he's asking for a no-fly zone. But they don't want to do that, because if they go in there, that means they have to have NATO planes in there that are going to shoot down Russian planes. So then that's directly a war, Russian and I guess America, the West. So they don't even want to do that. Last I heard, NATO didn't even want Ukraine. And last I heard, Zelensky even said joining the EU wasn't even a priority. You can look it up. So I don't know what's all this talk about NATO. So what does Putin want again? He wants Zelensky to resign and to demilitarize and have a new government chosen by Ukrainians. And like I said, split up the country into 3 sections, and doesn't want them to become part of Russia. I don't know. I thought that the eastern part wanted to join Russia. I guess what everybody really just wants is peace more than anything. Okay, so the Americans, they admit that Russia will take Ukraine, but they say U.S. will supply Ukraine to the last soldier. So they're going to just keep supplying them with weapons and whatever. Admit that Russia will take Ukraine. I don't know. What's going to happen after that? So then, okay, let's talk a little bit about the U.S. embargo on Russia and why actually it might not have anywhere near the effect that the U.S. would like it to have. So he was giving the example that where people were saying was, please listen to the media, listen to the world media and see the difference between what the Russians are saying is the whole world lying. I don't know if I made that clear, but my Ukrainian friend said he is being told by Ukrainians, why would you listen to Russia? Listen to the whole world. Why would the whole world be lying and Russia is telling the truth? But he's saying, well, the thing is that when we talk about the whole world, what it really means is the US, which is like under 500 million people, Canada, tiny amount of people, Europe, Western Europe, and Australia. So this is not the whole world, actually. There's a lot more to the world. I know that sometimes the West likes to think that they're the whole world, but they're not. So Russia, couple things. For one, obviously, they're allied with China. They also have Syria and Iran as allies. Brazil and India apparently are neutral. And a lot of Asia is sort of neutral or, trying to work something out. So most of the world geographically actually is either neutral or allied with Russia, if you think about it. China's a big area. India, they're good buddies with Russia. They got a lot of people there, like 1 billion people, more even. 1.4 billion people. So there's a lot of big countries that are allied. So it's not like, Russia's not Cuba. Like if you sanction them, they're not like this little island where, we're cut off from the rest of the world, we're screwed. They're a huge geographical expanse, and they have the experience of having formerly been the Soviet Republic. So they're well prepared. So what they're saying is that, they have all the resources. They have energy resources, they have wood, they have minerals, they have food, like you name it. This is such a huge amount of land. They produce everything in there. So they're quite self-sufficient compared to, for example, a little tiny country like, take, for example, Switzerland. It's a small, tiny little country. It's dependent on the outside. Actually, take America even. There's not a whole lot of manufacturing going on in there. America's very dependent. Canada totally dependent on imports, but Russia's not like that. Russia is big, productive, and pretty self-sufficient. Plus, they're still allied with China and some other big countries. So even with these sanctions, funny thing is the sanctions are having repercussions on Western businesses. Like, for example, IKEA and Zara, among others, pull out of Russia. Well, they're losing business, but how much is this really hurting Russians? Because what my Ukrainian friend is telling me is that some Russians are looking at this like, oh, hey, this is a great opportunity. Because now that IKEA is gone, these are these superstores, these, what do you call these multinationals, these huge companies, who can compete with them? But once they leave, it opens a place in the market for other companies. If IKEA is gone, it opens a space for Russian furniture companies to come and take their place. So that's another thing that people aren't really thinking about so much. Does Russia really care if Zara leaves or if IKEA leaves or whoever? Apparently not so much. They're going to just replace them with something else. It just opens up a space. Sorry, small intermission here. Look at your comments for a second. What have I told you, that Russia is fighting the globalist deep state and the dark side of the West? Oh, hey, man, let's, I'm looking at the same stuff you're looking at. It's not like I haven't heard these arguments. But like I've said before earlier in this live, last I checked, Putin and Klaus Schwab also had a bit of a connection, Why would you trust him? Why would you trust Putin? How do you know that this isn't just the next step on a plan for the reset or whatever they want, the new world that we're going to have, that this isn't just another piece of the puzzle, another brick in the road on the way to that? Why would you think? What, Putin just decided, actually, no, we're going to like just maybe he decided, actually, no, we're not going to go along with it. We're going to do our own thing. And that's what this is all about. Or maybe he's just part of this orchestrated, change that the World Economic Forum wants. So I don't have any reason to trust the Russians. Let's see what else. Okay, and about the financial sanctions. Now, they really went all out. Klaus Schwab is also connected to Zelensky. Probably yes. I kind of feel bad for Zelensky. I keep saying that. It's like he just seems a little bit pathetic these days. It's like nobody has his back. He's probably just being used. They probably just put him in there because they're like, yes, he's West friendly and NATO friendly, and he'll do whatever we want. And then he ends up with, a 20% or something of his own military going completely rogue on him. And then eventually the Russians come in, and now they have a war. And it turns out, actually, his friends, it turns out they were frenemies. They don't want to help him out now. Anyway, like, seriously, I don't have solutions for them. I'm just giving you some extra info on. I'm looking at some of your comments. I can't respond to all of them right now, but I'm checking it out. Okay, so let's talk about the financial sanctions a little bit. So the U.S. cut Russia out of the SWIFT banking program. Like, you need this SWIFT to transfer money. But the thing is that actually China has something that's like SWIFT, which is called CIPS, CIPS. So Russia just has to work on shifting all of their money through the Chinese banking system. That's it. I mean, yes, there's going to be definitely huge repercussions, but I think most of them are going to be on us. I think Russia's going to figure something out, and they're going to just, work with their allies. And then if they can't use SWIFT, they're going to use something else. That was only one of the things. Basically, that's what they're doing, is just working on restructuring their whole system just to work more with China. So maybe we're just empowering China in this situation. That's all we get. Let's see what else. So one more second here. Without my glasses. You guys never see me, without my glasses. I look a bit different. Okay. So yeah, the sanctions were just sort of giving opportunities. Okay, so what he was saying was that whereas before there was like a one-sided economic sort of dominance, which was America calling the shots with their US dollars and petrodollars and all that, where it could actually just shift to becoming like two-sided. You have the US and the Western allies on one side, Russia and China on the other side. Could be like sort of split. Did I get everything? Yeah, the question of will Russia then try to take Poland and Finland and all this? Would this be a World War III? And the question is the cost, is it worth fighting for with the US? Sorry, I can't read my own writing here. But anyway, we don't know down the road if it's going to be more. But for now, apparently, they say the Russians or like the Ukrainians from their side, they're saying his goal is to take all of Ukraine, but not to keep it, to govern it, but to just sort of like regime change, actually, not unlike what has been done in maybe Libya or something like that by the Americans, to come in and then sort of reorganize things. Like I said this before, but in case you're coming in late, the eastern region, the Donbass, I've heard that they want to join Russia, but Russia is saying, no, you're just going to become like a new region called Nova Russia. And then the middle is going to be like Russian ethnic Ukraine, and then the west is going to be Western Ukraine, and they're going to join the EU. So the story goes. And then the only other question was, the biggest effect it's going to have is, I mean, for the West, like these sanctions, like I said before, that they're putting on Russia, and I understand, like, this is what they do to put pressure. It doesn't seem to be working. But they do this kind of thing, except in this case, no, they're like way out of their league. Russia's just working around it overtime. It's just backfiring. It's going to backfire massively. I mean, you cut out such a big economy like that from your banking system, and you cut out their, I mean, even just their energy exports. You cut that out, and who are you really hurting? And Europe. I mean, what are they going to do with it? If you look at a map, Europe, like Western Europe, is like this little thing, and then Russia is like this huge thing that goes all the way out east. So that would be almost like if America decided to cut off Canada, so they're not going to get lumber and water and energy from us anymore, and that wouldn't be very good for them. But yeah, like Zion Shore says, it's just going to hurt the West. It is. I'm actually wondering, like, how bad is it going to hurt? I mean, how, and I'm not an expert about markets and stuff. Oh, here's a funny thing about markets that I heard, that investors are already starting to reinvest in Russia, because even though their markets have taken a dive and everything is very low, very cheap right now, and the ruble is down, but they know that it's going to recover. So Wall Street is already quietly starting to buy up Russian stock again in anticipation that it's going to go back up. So, it doesn't mean this is going to, they're not going to flatten Russia, basically. What's it going to do, though, to America, to Canada? I mean, I guess that's as far as I go in terms of getting the information. I interviewed this Ukrainian fellow who I really appreciated the information that he gave me, and he really knows a lot about it. I mean, where is this going to go? Is this just another step? Like, okay, I'll talk a little bit about what's going on here, like, before I wrap it up. So, obviously we just came out of this COVID thing. It's kind of winding down now. Like I told you, the media stopped talking about it a month ago. They were winding it down. So I was like, well, that's new. Like, where did the COVID go? Nobody's talking about it anymore. And then all of a sudden, it's because we're heading into another problem, this war, right? That we're, well, indirectly involved with. But what had been happening in the last few months here in Quebec and in Canada was they're talking a lot about digital ID, that you're going to have. I talked about this in my last live too. You're going to have a digital ID on your phone. You're going to have digital currency. It's going to be mandatory. You're going to be given a key like you do for Bitcoin. And the government's also going to have your key. In case you lose it, I guess you can just go ask them, right? I lost my key again. It's like your landlord now, he has a spare. And And there were other things about like, I'm going to tread carefully here because I like to, keep it factual, and I don't want to, I got to think about how I'm going to say this because it's live. But I mean, I think you guys remember a little bit about how there were like certain stages that we went through. Some people could kind of see them coming in advance, like the lockdowns, and then it opens up for a bit, and then you have another lockdown, and then all these different things. And then it started to go like towards the financial stuff just lately, where like if you donate to the wrong thing or participate in the wrong thing, they could actually freeze your bank account. For a few people, this actually happened. And at the same time, they're talking about these digital ID and digital wallets. That's like, well, hey, what if you donate to the wrong thing, or you trespass, and they don't like you? Can they just shut your bank account? And if all your digital ID is now on your phone, what happens if they don't like you, or you missed a payment on something, or who knows what their criteria is? What happens if like we're looking at like, what is this, like a social credit system here? They could just like close you out so you can't use your stuff, just like they can revoke your QR code after a while. And then there was this question of like, well, what happens to all these people who've gone into massive amounts of debt and the debt that would come? Now they're talking about interest rates fluctuating. There was this huge like housing boom. Everybody wanted to buy a house during the crisis. And now the interest rates are going to start going up because of what's happening with the economy. So people are going to lose their house. Oh, I could kind of see how it could be possible to have like a sort of forgiveness program, like debt removal program, where they say, well, you can still live in your house if you forfeit the house itself, and you live. Yeah, Steve, you get the idea. And you sort of live in there as a renter. What you owned before, you can still stay there, but it's not yours anymore. But you can just rent it. We'll make you a deal because it was yours, so we'll make you a good deal. You won't have to pay very much, but it doesn't belong to you anymore. And that sounded like, oh, that's crazy. Like, who would ever go for that? But now, after 2 years of economic hardships, and now like massive like inflation and interest rates going up, it's starting to look like, actually, maybe it could happen. Maybe it's possible. Maybe the current, and this is okay, this is your hypothetical. What if the currencies totally devalue and you really can't pay your stuff, and at the same time, the inflation, they're asking you for more money, and you just can't make your payments? Now, if that happened, what if the government came up with a new system where they're like, you know what, we'll forgive your debt. Like I said, we'll forgive your debt. You can keep your house, except it's not yours anymore. But we'll hook you up. And meanwhile, they're actually right now passing legislation for universal basic income, which on a certain level sounds really great. I mean, we want to get rid of poverty. What I don't understand is why in Canada, they still give people who are on welfare, up until now, even now, they get like less than $700 a month. That doesn't make any sense. You can't do anything. You can just like, what can you do with that? Buy some beans and live in a cardboard box. What do you do with $650 a month? And that's where we are now. And they're talking about a basic income, and they're handing out money like it's Oprah Christmas special. And yet in all these 2 years, they didn't raise welfare, So I find it really strange. It's like the middle class is getting used to getting handouts. And we're talking about things like basic income, and we're talking about debt forgiveness. And yet the poorest classes this entire time, that nothing has been done for them. So they're whatever inflation there is, they're not, or disability. Well, disability, actually, the payments did go up a little bit because my partner, Aaron, he's on disability. They went up, though, I think, not just recently, but like in the last couple of years. It might have even actually been before like most of the pandemic effects. They did raise it. And I mean, disability here in Quebec was horrible. Like a person who's totally disabled in a wheelchair was like, they got about $1,000 a month. And, rent, even just for a really small apartment, would be like $700 at least. I mean, you really just can't. You could probably put a roof over your head and feed yourself with that, but you'd be extremely poor. And these are disabled people. Like, it's not a choice, Where's the social support? So it went up a little bit, went up like $200 or $300. But for people who are just on welfare, which can also mean that they're suffering from some kind of, it could be a medical problem, or it could be just some other hardship in their life where they're not able to work, but they don't qualify for disability, which is actually hard to qualify for. Our government here, as they're handing out all this free money, the poorest of the poor, they didn't get anything. They didn't get more money during this. I mean, maybe they threw them a few crumbs now and then, like here's 200 or 300 bucks, and then you just go back to your 650 welfare or whatever. And if you have two people on welfare living in the same house, they really cut it down. So it's like the first person gets their like 650, and the second person only gets like 350 or $400. I mean, it's really just nothing. And I thought that that's like an incongruity. We're talking about eliminating poverty, we're talking about basic income, and in all this time, as we're moving towards that, you haven't even done anything for people who are already on welfare. That's kind of weird. But as we head into hyperinflation and rising interest rates, and the middle class starts to be affected, and they lose their ability to pay for their homes, then the government's going to want to come in with something universal basic income. But I think they never cared about the poor in the first place. But all of a sudden now, as it hits the middle class, somebody says they know people getting plenty more. It really depends where you are. In Alberta, they give you a lot more welfare. In Quebec, it's really low. I mean, I have a friend, he's on disability, and he works at a soup kitchen. He actually, well, I won't say who it is, but anyway, he works at a soup kitchen like 5 days a week for the afternoon. And for that, he gets an extra $100 a month. So he gets $25 a week. So basically it's like he has a job, except he just gets paid welfare, and he gets a free bus pass. So that's the cap that there is here. If you're on disability, you can earn an extra $25 a week and get a free bus pass if you're working, and that's it. Some get $1,700 a month. Yeah, but where? Orange Vanilla Sky, not in Quebec. No, I don't think it's possible. So anyway, though, if we're having a financial crash, which it looks like we could be, and they're talking about basic income. Yeah, what I was saying was they didn't seem really concerned about the poor, but now that it's going to like affect the middle class and higher than that, then they're going to come in with something. And those people who haven't been poor before, I guess they're going to be like, oh yeah, we'll take that universal basic income. I mean, it sounds like a really great idea, but like I'm saying, if you're going to have universal basic income, why didn't you just give people better welfare payments? Wouldn't that be the same thing as universal basic income? Because as a mother of a child with special needs, I get a subsidy from the government. So I consider that that's like a basic income. Everyone who has children here gets a subsidy every month, everybody. And if your kid has special needs, you get more. I'm very happy with that. I wouldn't need any basic income above it. I think that's fine. That's while you have kids. But I don't understand why the poorest of the poor don't get that. And then now all of a sudden, everyone's going to want to have basic income. And I'm wondering whether maybe this would be where now the plans for the restructuring of like our way of life and our global economy, Build Back Better. If you have like market crashes, hyperinflation, and rising interest rates, that people are going to be willing to get on board with some kind of programs where they're like, yeah, I'll forfeit my property as long as, you just take care of me and make sure I don't have to move out of my house. And it's a pretty good deal for me because I keep this nice house that I had. I don't want to have to move into some little tiny apartment, like the one I live in. They're not going to want that. They're going to want to stay where they are. So I'm wondering if maybe this is where we're heading. And then, of course, with it all being digital, it's going to be like really easy to control, to know who's doing what, who spent what money, who gave what money to who. And yeah, like Vicky says, you won't be able to buy or sell without that ID. It's possible. I just saw an article the other day where they were getting rid of cash. Where was it? I can't remember now, but I think maybe somebody can tell me in the comments. I thought it was like some kind of a theme park or some kind of a place where they just decided we're not taking cash anymore. I don't know if it was Disney. I don't want to say because maybe it wasn't them. Was it in Australia? Maybe it was in Australia. Yeah. And then for the crypto, see, they're trying to close all the loose ends, like, close all the gaps. They're working on that. They're saying like, what was it I just saw about if you're that, any like self custodial wallets, it also has to be regulated, or the company that provides these can be held responsible. They're trying to find way. Yeah, Anne says crypto will be controlled by governments too. Mama heard that too. What you heard about they won't take cash. Australian banks announced cashless banking, getting rid of automated tellers. Oh, really? Even getting rid of automated tellers? Wow, it's weird. So, like, a lot of people went on bank runs. I didn't do it. I was like, you know what? You can't beat this. Like, there's no way. I'm not gonna go on bank run. Like, screw it. Whatever. So you go and you take all your cash out, and then it turns out you can't do anything with it. It's just as likely to happen. And the cash isn't gonna be worth anything anyway. How do you pay your kid an allowance? Well, I guess your kid has to have a bank card. Hi, Jeff. Has to have a bank card, and then you just put money on his bank card. Oh, hi, other Jeff. So I was just about to wrap it up, and now the Jeffs are here. So yeah, I mean that's basically all the info that I have from my Ukrainian friend. But what I'm thinking is like it's heading into the next stage, and we're going into like the financial restructuring stage of all this. And you guys, I'll tell you something. The other day, there's a guy in my audience. Okay, now like I'm done with my report. I'm just talking to you for a little bit. I'll try not to go on for too long. There's a guy in my audience that turns out that he knew one. Remember, I did a video where I said 3 of my friends died, and I was really upset about it. Well, he's the cousin of one of those people, and he didn't even know that I knew his cousin. So he got in touch with me. So I gave him my number. And we're talking. So the other day he calls me, and I start launching into this whole story about how I was put in this like institutional, like residential school when I was younger. And after I told him, and he was like, "Oh, you just totally overshared," Me, the awkward Aspie. Yes. Did I overshare? I was like, oh my God, really? Okay. But the reason I overshared it, and I'm going to overshare it to you guys, was that my experience in this experimental school taught me a lot. It taught me so much because what they were using there was basically the same kind of techniques that cults use. So the reason I was sharing it with him was not because like, oh, I need to talk about me. Enough about me. Let's talk about me. It's because I feel like this urgent need to tell people like, look, these are like very, hi JP. These are very well known psychological manipulation tactics, and I'll tell you about what we went through. Okay, sorry, I had to shift myself around a bit here. What happened to us was they took away. I should do a whole other separate thing about this. Seriously, I'll just tell you a bit. But you guys know me. I said, I'm just going to tell you a little, but then I just talk, right? They took away our individuality first. This was not a normal boarding school. It was an experimental school, sort of like what Paris Hilton went to. Like when you had kids that you didn't know what to do. Thanks, Flyway. You didn't know what to do with your kids and you had the money, you could put them in one of these experimental schools. It's a residential school as opposed to a boarding school because you're there all year. There's no guarantee you're ever going to get out. You might get a pass, like a prisoner. You could get a pass for 4 days of vacation if you earned it and with consensus of your group. Or maybe if you're really lucky, it was 10 days. But you could go 8, 9, 10 months, maybe even a year without ever leaving the school. And you could be there for a very long time. You could not leave when you were 18, even though legally you're supposed to be able to, but they wouldn't let you leave. They would actually send underage kids to after you. And if you fought them off, they would call the police on you for assaulting a minor. So they had all these tactics. But number one is to take away your individuality, to basically just break you down. And you just become part of the group. So the way you did this, number one was group consequences, which I saw a lot of the same tactics happening with the pandemic. And I'm not saying that, and like I don't want to make an issue here with YouTube saying that the things that we didn't work. I'm not saying that, but it's known in Quebec that a lot of the decisions for the management were political. This totally came out afterwards. For example, the curfew. It was discussed in our media after that this actually went against the recommendations of public health. So I'm not talking here about not following public health guidelines or whatever. Sorry, having a bit ADD moment here. I know this. I talk so much. I ate my lipstick. So what they did though was they take away until you comply. And this was political here I'm talking about. They give back, and then they take away, and they want to blame the ones who didn't do their part. So let's say for the curfew, this was absolutely crushing that at Christmas, just like we were expecting that we're going to have gatherings. I mean, I don't have any family anyway that I have gatherings with, but a lot of people were expecting they're going to have gatherings. They're going to have a good New Year's. The restaurants were all ready. They were, they paid money, and they're getting ready for their New Year's. They're hoping to make some money, and then the government just pulls the rug out from under their feet. So who are you going to get angry at? And again, remember, this curfew, this was political. I think the Legault government thought that they could use that to create more division and aim more anger at a certain segment of the population, and then use that to increase their popularity, but it backfired. So take away, give back the privileges, because that's what we had in our school. They take away all our privileges. When you come in, you start with no privileges. Then they give them back to you. But then it's a group punishment concept. So if there's someone in your dorm who does something, the whole dorm could be punished for it. And the way that you're punished is all the privileges are taken away. So I'll come back to the curfew thing. But for example, when you came in and you're a level 1, you're not allowed to have posters on your walls. You're not allowed to have music, not allowed to have a whole bunch of things. Often they made you walk around in groups. You had to be, now we have to be, 6 feet away. But at the time we had to be arm's distance from each other. So you were leashed. They later called it friended. So you're leashed to these people. So it takes away your individuality. I cannot be Sonia by myself anymore. I'm now just part of this group, part of this hive. And everything I do affects the group. So if I leave my shoes in the hallway, the whole group is punished. And if I do something really serious, like smoke a cigarette, or God forbid, run away, then the whole group is very severely punished. And again, just like here, everything is now a privilege. They can strip it all away from you. So they would even make us send our clothes home. We could only keep 1 week's worth of clothes. They make us send everything home. And they would even confine us. Lockdown. They would confine us to our dorms. That was called being dormed. And they could even confine us to the lobby. That was called being lobbied. So it was exactly the same thing. Except we weren't quarantined, but we were confined. We were locked down. And then you have to work things out to get back out. And the whole group has to do it together. And then the authorities, though, decide when you're ready to come out. So, and then if something goes wrong again, you're all back in. So guess what people start doing? They start policing each other. Because if Sonia does something wrong, then Susie's going to be, suffering for it. So Susie's going to watch Sonia. And if Sonia does something and Susie didn't report her, well, Susie's guilty too. And maybe the whole dorm is guilty. So it's very similar to that's what I was experiencing during these lockdowns. Oh, they take away our privileges. Then they give them back. Then they take them away and they say it's because of those people. So that's going to make us band together to police each other. And that's what they did. So then you've got everybody policing everybody. Are you following the rules? Because if you're not, I'm going to suffer for it. So that's what, and that's just one of the things, like removing your individuality. And there were so many, this was happening on so many levels. What we had to wear, where we could go, where we could stand on the spot, everything that we had to do. I mean, I know that they serve a purpose. Some of those things, they serve the purpose for public health, but regardless, the effect of living with it it had an effect on us collectively, a kind of traumatic effect. But they know this now. People who lived through this pandemic, they have mental health issues. Like people have trauma, and I had lived through something very similar. So a lot of the stuff that was happening with the removing the privileges and then giving them back and then removing them, I was saying, hey, they're doing exactly what they did to us when we were young. I went through this before, So I had this bad feeling that they were just going to keep it going, But I feel like we're sort of out of that. We're out of that now. Things have settled down. But we're in another phase now. But it's like what we went through the last 2 years had affected us. You can't go through that. You are now trained for this social responsibility, which like maybe Asian countries always had this concept, as they say they do. But we lived in very individualistic societies in Canada, Western Europe, America. So they trained us now to have a more collectivist mindset, a more socially responsible mindset. Through traumatizing us, that's hardcore training that we just went through for 2 years. But look at where we are now compared to our mindset. Like, try to go back. It's a weird thing, eh? After being isolated and locked down so much for so long, it's like it's hard to remember even how it was before. Like, your mindset actually changes. It's hard to remember. It's hard to even go back to that. So even if you can go back, but it's like you're never going to be the same. So now we have a new mindset. So as we had to learn collective responsibility for the pandemic, now we're going to have to learn collective financial responsibility. That's what I'm thinking. So the effects of what's happening over there, and wow, like I totally went on a tangent here, but the yeah, I know, Brendan, like not everyone would agree with that, but I'm saying like as a group, that's what happened. There's people that they weren't like this at all before. They were much more individualistic. People that I'd known for a long time, kind of like really freewheeling people, and they totally changed, So at that point, at a certain point, if you say, well, now we need to introduce this different financial system, like to save our economy, to save our country, I think people are going to go along with it. A lot of people they're going to do it. You understand what I'm saying, right? So that's why, I mean, I hope that this war ends. I think, I want to just see diplomacy. I want to see the conflict resolved. But I'm thinking that in the bigger picture, this is another step towards this new collectivist mentality that we're being trained to have, applying it on a financial level. That's what I'm thinking. It's going to push that. And that's why when people say, oh, Putin, he's fighting against this, new system. And I don't think so. Not necessarily. Remains to be seen. I think we could be very close to taking the next step. I mean, look, they put all the infrastructure in place. Would they be doing this for no reason? Why would they, they started us with a QR code. They trained us to scan. Not everywhere, right? Like some places didn't do it. A lot of America areas, like places in America didn't do it. Florida certainly didn't do it. A lot of places never did this, but here in Quebec, they really did. It trained you before they even had the QR code. They trained us to scan a QR code and register. We scanned a QR code first, and then they scanned our QR code. But you got it in your head that wherever you go, you're gonna scan something. You get used to it all being on your phone. So I think it's been a lot of sort of elementary level training, because you can't just take a population and be like, okay, hey guys, we're going to do it a totally different way now. It's all going to be on your phone. You're going to scan everything, and like, and all the loopholes or like the gaps in this, everything's closed, is airtight, and like we can deplatform you anytime we want. But given the right crisis, and if we head into a financial crisis, I think that people, especially with the training they've had, they're gonna. Some people, not everyone. I mean, we know we have like maybe 30% of people who are pretty pissed off right now in Canada. There's a lot of people that are going to go along with it. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Oh, thanks, Mike. I feel like I'm just like, I talk a lot. I have a lot of, like you guys, what it is, I read a lot. I don't know what it is about me, but wake up in the morning, I start reading, I read and from so many different publications, and I just want to. I don't know. I guess I just need the stimulation. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on in my house, and I'm not really. I'm not. I'm getting a. I don't get a lot of satisfaction out of little hobbies. I have a lot of books, but what I like about the internet is that you can choose the subjects. You got this big library. You can like research, and whatever you want to learn about, and you can go to like a lot of different sources. I hope it stays that way. Um, and I mean, sometimes I'll be looking at blogs because they'll help me find links to like websites that it's not as easy to find, but mostly the stuff I'm looking at, it's reputable. Like you might have some journalists that they don't work for the New York Times anymore, but they have a Substack, so I really love that kind of stuff. Like these are professionals who really know how to research a topic. And so I read a lot. So I tend to have a lot of stuff that I'm like thinking about. And so then if I come on do a live stream, you're going to, like I said, it's going to be an info dump because I've been reading about this stuff for like the last week and thinking about it and not really buying the narrative, that Putin is, some people are thinking that Putin is trying to go against some kind of new global order or that he's somehow the good guy. And I don't believe that. And mostly I wanted to understand more about what was going on in Ukraine, why the military is so fragmented and it's so chaotic. And it's like, like I said, a lot of things didn't make sense. It even looked like, did Putin even have a battle plan? What was happening? So no, he wasn't hitting civilian targets like to kill civilians. It was after it was evacuated and he was fighting. The Russians are fighting Azov. That's why they were blowing up all these buildings because these Azov guys are still in there, And one last thing. Oh, did my vape just die? I vaped so much I killed it. One last thing was that what? Oh, I watched the State of the Nation. Is this State of the Nation address, or they call it State of the Union? State of the Nation address with the president, with Biden, and he was remarkably coherent. He was remarkably lucid and coherent. Oh, thanks, Paul. Thank you for oversharing, he says. Cool. Thank you. Biden, there's a lot of videos making fun of him. There's a lot of videos where he looks like he's not right, like he's getting dementia or something. I've seen him like wandering off following an ice cream truck, like totally confused. And this is what people spoof all the time. Biden's completely like, he's so having senior moments left and right. Who's running the country? Well, it's not this guy. But actually, at the State of the Nation address, State of the Union? I'm sorry, you guys. I should know. State of the Union. Okay. No? Or State of the Nation? Anyway, when they had all the important people come into the big important room. Okay, well, if somebody could tell me if it's State of the Union or State of the Nation, but sorry about that, you guys. He sounded very on the ball. I was surprised. I thought that he was gonna be blathering. Yes, there were some gaffes. Yes, I did notice that he called the Ukrainians Uranians. Okay, State of the Union. I did notice that he said, that they would never crush the spirit of the Russians would never crush the spirit of the Iranians. Some little things like that, but on the whole, he sounded pretty lucid, and I don't think he's demented. I think it's probably like with Bush Jr., where they like fake it. They try to act more stupid on purpose. So people are like, oh, look at him, he's so stupid, he's totally demented, he's such a senior or whatever. I don't think he was. And the weird thing about that was so maybe it was voice to skull. Somebody's putting the words straight in his head. He just blurts them out. In that case, voice to skull technology would work really well if you had a demented president and you needed to make him sound coherent. Actually, good point. That would be a great application of this scary technology. But I noticed like when they started the meeting and all these people, Biden acts senile when he wants. All these people were coming in and it was like they were at a church lunch. First of all, we're talking about a horrible thing. We're talking about possibly World War III, like a horrible situation with Russia and Ukraine. And they're all smiling. They look really happy. And they're hugging each other like they're super good friends. Like it wasn't like a professional, like they're coming in and it's very solemn and serious and they're shaking hands. It was like they knew each other really well and they were super affectionate with each other. And that part of the live stream is like removed after when they posted it on Facebook and stuff. But when it originally aired, the first few minutes as they're all coming in, I was like, what is up with these people? They look so happy. They look actually like jubilant. It almost seemed like they were celebrating. Yeah, they all smile so weird. Right. Did you guys notice that? They didn't look like they were like concerned and it was serious. They looked like they were happy. He was literally reading from a teleprompter. I was looking for the teleprompter and I was like, where is it? It's like I don't know, they hide it really well, I guess. I guess he was just reading from a teleprompter. Nancy Pelosi did some very weird things in that at one point he's talking about, these burn pits and whatever, and she gets up and she starts going like this with her hands. Like, what was that? And I think it was like she was anticipating that he was saying that he was going to say something's going to be done about this, but she got up too soon and she was all like this, and it looks like she's like excited about like, yeah, the burn pits. It was so weird. I was like, Nancy, sit down. This doesn't look good. And then the camera changes. Get that camera off, Pelosi. Get it off right now. Go somewhere else. Yeah, praying mantis hands. Pelosi turns into a praying mantis on camera. She's like about to shapeshift. And they're like, get the camera off her. Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you, Paul. You could see they were like, you can just imagine the control. They're like, what the heck is Pelosi doing? They get the camera off and they have it on this guy sitting in the front, and he's looking like you can see that he's looking at Nancy Pelosi and he's like, good Lord, she's turning into a praying mantis. Like, this is bad. This is bad for America. Like, what's going on? You could see on his face, he was like dying inside. I thought that the whole screen was going to turn gray and that music was going to come on. And all the people in the front row, they're like, oh, dying inside, shamed by the Speaker of the House. It was a really weird moment. I think she was just too excited. She knew what was coming and she was already doing the prayer. It was so bad. Doing the praying mantis in anticipation. She played with her dentures the whole time. Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, look at Pelosi looks good. I mean, she must be what, like 95? No, I'm sorry. I know she's like 82 or something like that. Like, I've actually wondered, like, why do they even want to work anymore? They're so old. Why do they want to do these jobs? It's so much on their shoulders, so much pressure. It was the same thing. Hillary Clinton is like, lady, like, take a minute for yourself, retire, make some muffins. You don't have to do this forever. It's like a lot of really like older people. And Pelosi, though, I'm looking at her and I'm looking at Kamala Harris and I'm like, they look roughly the same age, like, who's your surgeon? I want to know. They should have like one of these like reality shows where they give like senior officials in the government makeovers, and at the end, the big reveal. And Nancy Pelosi comes out looking like a female Howdy Doody. Playing with her dentures, praying mantis. The great reveal. And then they show you like Nancy and like with the body like turning like this. They're like, Nancy Pelosi has had a breast augmentation, liposuction, a brow lift, and an endoscopic brow lift, cheek implants, and lip filler. And she turns around, she's all, oh. But she looks good. I mean, for her age. She wears a silicone mask. Maybe. But I mean, she didn't look that much older than Kamala Harris, except for around the eyes, like the eyes start to sink. You can't fake. They haven't figured that one out yet. How do you inject some fluid to fill up your eyes again so they don't sink down, because you fix the rest of your face, but then your eyes are sunken. And I was looking at them and I was like, it seems like plastic surgery is a big thing with this crowd. And then I couldn't understand why Kamala Harris didn't do anything about her neck/chin, because people were like, what's up with the chin? I mean, I don't want to judge, but you run in these circles. I mean, why do your face and then leave your chin, because I guess they're counting on the camera coming from the above angle, but then, something could go wrong. Like they could be filming you this way. And then like all of a sudden everybody knows your little secret, Anyway, I mean, because I'm sorry, but like at first I saw Kamala Harris, I thought she had like a beard, like I thought she had like a little, a little bit of a lady beard going on. Not judging, but like, I mean, hey, you put yourself out there. I thought there was like, like what's going on with Kamala's, chin area there. And then I was like, oh, she just forgot to do that part in the procedure. But they look good, basically. I mean, honestly, secretly, I probably kind of envy them that they have access to that kind of technology. Like, did you see Madonna? Madonna has reverse aged like 60 years. I mean, I know she's probably only about 65, but she has reverse aged completely. She's like mastered it. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But yeah, what's so weird, the weirdest thing, you think Madonna looks awful? Okay, maybe she's using filters. I don't know. I haven't actually seen her like moving around without filters. I just seen like pictures of her that probably came from her Instagram. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe actually, and I thought I was so savvy, and actually I was just totally taken in by Madonna's filters. I just realized like I'm a complete fool. She probably just has an iPhone and she put filters. Duh. And I was like, whoa, like that is some serious work. Like, how did you do that? Anyway, yeah, these people at the State of the Union address, they all looked really happy. They looked like they were celebrating. Yeah, Madonna's hands, though. Yes, I know. Madonna has big veins like in her hands. So do I. I don't know if you can see it. Probably can't. Yeah, you can see a bit here. See, I like my veins, though, because I inherited them from my dad. So it's like I have a little piece of him. That and the bags. But yeah, Madonna has like these big veins all over. What can you do though? You can't fix that. There's apparently like this, it's like a kind of, that foam that you use in the bathroom, like to like plug the gaps. Well, they have something like that. Don't take that foam and put it in your hand. It's not the same thing, but they have like a plastic surgery version of that. It's a kind of foam that they put in the veins and it collapses them. And they're like, oh, look, see my pretty hands? My hands are so pretty now because I had my veins collapsed. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you just collapsed your veins. Like, aren't you worried about that? I wouldn't want to collapse my veins. That would kind of freak me out. Like, if you have veins all the way up your arm, like, go for it. Just like collapse all of them. I'm going to look great. And then it's like your fingers are turning black. Oh, yeah, that circulation thing. I forgot. Madonna 63. Oh, Olivier, no, don't say that. Not at all. Just a little chit chat about, this is like, just a little chit chat about the things that people do, right? But yeah, they looked very happy. They're all greeting each other. They're hugging. And I thought, they do not look like people who are worried about an imminent catastrophe. And at that moment, I was convinced, Scotty, your comment, I was convinced that everything's going to be okay. Convinced that we're not going to have nuclear war. There is no way. I mean, unless that they're excited that we might have nuclear war, but I don't think so. I think that they really just think this is all sort of part of the plan. It's going to take us to the next level. They were all really happy at the State of the Union. I mean, the word that came to mind for me was jubilant. Like they were practically celebrating. And they were making all these like positive, promises about all the great things that are going to happen next. Biden made a whole bunch of promises, but they always make promises, right? But do they keep them? Not always, right? But it was like a whole, festival of making promises. And they were happy through the pandemic too. Well, they look very happy. I don't know. Maybe they just meditate a lot and they're just like really at peace with everything. I don't know. And they're all really good friends, And they were hugging too. So I guess they're not worried about COVID. I'm onto something. Yeah, I think they were like celebrating. They're like, we did it. And Pelosi, the praying mantis, she's just so excited. She just couldn't hide it anymore. She's like, we did it. Oh, my dentures. Put them back in. We did it, Biden. We did it. Yeah. But I saw that and I was convinced I think everything's going to be sort of okay. I mean, we're not going to die or anything. Like, we're not going to get nuked. And if you do get nuked, don't forget, take the government's advice, go into the shelter and stay 6 feet away from everyone else with your mask on. Remember to keep the mask. Take off your radioactive clothes, scrub your radioactive body, and keep your mask on so you don't get the COVID while in the shelter. Because imagine how much that would suck. Yeah. I think the thing that freaked me out the most was seeing how happy they were. I was like, what are you people so happy about? This is a war. Like this, I don't understand. Like this should be, you should be all like, yes, very serious situation here. But they looked serious after when he was doing the address. But when they first came in, the part that they cut out and didn't post, that part, if you saw it live, they were like, yay. It was weird. And there was even a kid there. And I was like, what's he doing here? How does a kid end up sitting there, like watching the State of the Union address? Thank you, Angela. It's great to see you guys here. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up because you guys know I can go all night. I used to do radio. I don't know if you guys know, but I used to have my show on American Freedom Radio. It was like an American FM station. And so I used to do that like 3 times a week. And actually the hardest thing about doing radio was, for me, was scheduling guests. I have like scheduling anxiety. But talking about stuff was fun, like doing the interviews and all that. But it's actually even more fun here in a way because I get to see all of you there, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I hope that YouTube is happy with my live stream. I don't go to the meat grinder. I try to watch myself, but it's like tiptoe. It's just in case. Remember when Bill was jumping up and down when he thought Hillary won? Yeah, I guess a lot of people were expecting she was going to win. And then she didn't even get to win this time. Like, I guess she's out of the race now. Franny! Oh, I'm glad I talked so long because now I see that Franny's here. Hey, Franny, how are you doing? And Karen Burns, I saw you before. Hi, Karen. And hi, Karen Lewis and Vegas Girl and Orange Vanilla Sky. Thank you. Oh, you love the old wardrobe behind me? Oh, my mother gave me that. Well, when she moved, I inherited it. I love this thing. This is like, it's been in my family for a very long time. There's a date on it. It says 1774. This thing is really old. And it's made, like the old way. Like it's super heavy and it's rickety and it's got this old key in it and stuff. And I always wanted that thing. I was hoping to inherit it one day. I kind of thought that one day I would actually live in a house and like have space for all this nice furniture. I inherited a living room. It leads to Narnia. I know one day I'll go in and see what happens. I inherited this like nice dining room set. It's like this heavy wood. I think it's oak or something, but it's heavy and it's got like a slight even like grayish brownish cast to it. And it looks like something from like a medieval castle. It's not that big, but it's very clunky. And I couldn't take it. I just didn't have space for it. There's that table, and there was also that table that ended up being my father's desk. Yeah, it became his desk, but that was supposed to be my table. But there was nowhere for me to put it, so I don't have it. But I got that closet, and I really love it. It's so cool. Old closet from Germany. Isn't that crazy? My mother had this thing brought over from Germany. What's the red thing on the wall above the wardrobe? But that's just a little mirror from the dollar store. And the other thing is like just a little picture. Am I still doing keto? No. First of all, I got sick of it. I did it for like 8 months. I lost about 8 pounds, but the weight comes back when you stop. Even if you don't eat a lot, it just comes back. It was hard. I did do it. I did lose some weight, but I mean, whatever. And also I'm too poor, honestly. Now with the inflation, I can't afford keto. Screw it. I'm fed up. Plus I miss the fruit too much. I just can't do it anymore. Laura's doing it though. Yeah. The pics. Oh, those pictures there. Those also I inherited because this is Gunner's room. So those are like pictures of hunting scenes. Am I vegetarian? No, I'm like a closet vegetarian. I always said I was closet. I always liked, when I was a kid, I was vegetarian from like age 4. Probably a big mistake. Probably stunted my growth. My arms are really short. Look, my elbow. Look how short it is. My arms are super short. Maybe I would have grown a lot more. So I don't know. I didn't do it right, probably. But yeah, I was like hardcore vegetarian when I was young for years, but not anymore, But I eat a little bit of meat, but I really love vegetarian food mostly. So anyway, like I guess I better wrap it up. But we'll do it again. And I want to do one where we just sort of chat about whatever, chit chat. See, I came in here and I was like telling myself, I'm just going to talk about this Ukraine thing. I'm not going to get into all this other stuff. But then you know what? You guys are so much fun. I love seeing your comments. Like you guys are the best. It's like you guys are my people. You know what I mean? Like my kind of people. You have a sick sense of humor. I love that. You're a riot. I love to see your comments. And it's like, I see that and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then, oh, you got me going on something else again. But it's been fun. Queen Elizabeth donated money to Ukraine. It's weird. Okay, I guess that proves that she's still alive because there were some rumors that she didn't make it, but apparently she's still okay. I think I think that it's pretty normal for the royals to live to at least about 100, so we don't have to worry about that. She donated money to Ukraine. Well, that's nice. Hi, Galley Sally. Thanks. That's cool. You've been watching for a long time. You see my kid grow up. I have a great range of motion. What are you, a chiropractor? Yeah, I have a great range of motion. You wouldn't believe. I'm not going to start doing my party tricks now, but I have a lot of them. If ever, maybe another live stream, I'll show you. But yeah, no, the queen. No, I just have one. Well, one kid. I mean, I have a 14-year-old and a 62-year-old. So no, I haven't had any more babies. Yeah, I don't know. Is Queen Elizabeth still alive? Oh, I saw some footage of her where her hand was looking kind of purple, and I was like, that doesn't look good. But they have the best medical care. Apparently they use homeopathy, so they live a long time. Yeah, Jeff Dog. I know you've been following a long time too. Yeah, I known you from way back, 11 years, Ruth. Wow. Um, well, you guys, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, or I'll just keep talking and talking. But it's been really fun. Thanks again for being here, and yeah, it's been good. And we'll do another one. We'll just chit chat about all kinds of stuff. Maybe we'll do it soon. So thanks a lot. Thanks, you guys, and have a good night. And I'll see you next time.